Okay, we're going to get started without the other group. They're running overtime. I just have a few minutes worth of remarks, and then I'll hand you over to Diane. I just wanted to tell you about two features of the Musella Foundation. One is relatively new. We have a brain tumor treatment co-payment assistance program now. There's a little brochure in most of the bags. Basically, we can help you with up to the first $5,000 a year in co-payments for the 4 main treatments. So if any of you have high co-payments or deductibles, give me a call. We'll go to our website. It's pretty generous qualifications. Almost all of you should probably qualify easily. So anyone who has the high deductibles, do it. Another question raised before was, how do you get access to the information? These conferences only come every 2 years, and new stuff comes out every week. We also have a newsletter. I call it the Brain Tumor News Blast. You subscribe from my website, which is virtualtrials.com. We send out a newsletter about twice a week or so with all the top headlines, along with a commentary from me that helps explain it in normal, plain English. That's about all for mine. We'll probably wait a couple minutes for Diane's lecture. In the meantime, if you want, we could have some questions for the speakers. Did anybody have any questions? Let the speakers come up. Dr. Zagzag? Dr. Brem? Dr. Eisenstein? Does anybody have questions for the speakers? Let me start out with the first couple of questions. Do any of you see a major breakthrough coming within the next few years? Anyone want to answer?
I think a major breakthrough will only come when we understand the disease better. And I think we have made a great deal of progress over the last 30 years. I think we have a proof of concept, as we discussed last night. There are some tumors. For example, there is a tumor known as a subependymal giant cell astrocytoma, SIGA for short, S-E-G-A, that is occurring in kids with a disease known as tuberous sclerosis. That's a tumor that is primarily the result of one molecular abnormality related to a gene called TS1 or TS2 mutation. And there is now a drug which is very efficient. And as I mentioned yesterday, many of my colleagues, pediatric neurosurgeons at NYU, have really changed their approach about how they deal with kids with this tumor. So I think understanding the tumor better will certainly lead to better therapies. And I think we're going to need to make more effort, more research to understand the tumor better. Dr. Brem?
So, no, as Yogi Berra said, predictions are always difficult, especially when it comes to the future. So I'm just basically an optimist. I always have been, right? And I think with that enthusiasm, that was the message of the last hour with Gene and everyone else. You need that basic optimism. So who knows? I mean, for a long time, as Harvey Cushing said, we have been very humble in the face of some of these illnesses. But just to be brief, one has to be very optimistic for 3 reasons. One, the number of targeted drugs and the fact that today melanoma, which used to be a tough disease, now it used to be DTIC and that's it. Now it's like, oh, the c-KIT is abnormal, let's give this drug. And the BRAF, NRAS, whatever, it's one after another. And I think we're trying to get that model of targeted therapy for brain tumors. So we have targets, we have drugs. We also have pharmaceutical industry now looking at brain tumors as a soluble problem. That's huge. That used to be one of the big barriers. So the success, the maybe temporary, maybe qualified success of Avastin, the definite success of temozolomide, these are getting pharmaceutical companies interested. Before then, the only funding was from NCI, which was very limited. So now I think we have some real funders. We also have groups like Al Masella and Virtual Trials, and I could name a few others but people are really putting resources together. There's this, what the first Matt said, that we're breaking silos. There's these summit meetings going on. There's a different climate, more collaboration and less competition, less ego, turf, and those kind of issues. So I think for those three reasons, the science, the collaboration, and the initial success, we are on the verge of major breakthroughs.
I would certainly agree. I think that, from my perspective as someone who does not work with brain tumor patients on an ongoing basis, to come here every year or come here every couple of years and find out about the really exciting advances in understanding and targeted treatments and the pathophysiology of brain tumors, I think is really exciting. So I think there's certainly an ongoing cause for hope and for a lot of excitement.
I have another question, psychology related, well, brain related. The question came up, if somebody has damage to the speech area, is there any way that you could maybe learn a second language and use a different area of the brain to be able to speak? Has that ever been done?
The closest thing to that is something that Edith Kaplan was doing 25 years ago called melodic intonation therapy. And for some reason that I certainly don't understand, and I don't know if it's understood well by anybody, people who can be globally aphasic and unable to speak can sing. Other than that, I don't know of anyone learning a different language. And our self, who we are, is so bound to language. It is so hard to understand what happens in someone who's globally aphasic, who can't talk. What is their experience like? How are they different? And it's one of these unknowable things. It's a great idea. I wish someone could figure out some way to do it. That one I'm not so hopeful about.
Another question that came up was about using diet, specifically low sugar and also low copper. Can anyone make a comment about this?
Well, I think David and I could both speak about that. David got his PhD thesis. He achieved really remarkable moment when we were blocking invasion and brain tumor growth with a low copper diet. Copper is important in the angiogenesis. We took that to a clinical trial, and the clinical trial did not increase survival. We also had some work on mechanisms. VEGF and many of the growth factors do use copper. It's a necessary cofactor. So I think we had the first Avastin trial, although we weren't looking at all the progression-free survival, we're just looking at overall survival. We saw some complete responses with low copper, actually in humans, but again, we were probably watching co-optation and escape and all this. So I think copper is very important. There's a group not looking at diet so much, but looking at a chelator, tetrathiomolybdate, looking for head, neck, breast, and ovarian cancer. So it may be an important part of a future cocktail. The idea of just taking a diet, low copper, and it will switch off the tumor is a little simplistic. It's going to be more than just not eating shellfish or chocolates or liver, which are rich in copper. It's probably much more complex than that, but that was a very interesting observation we had in the laboratory.
Anybody have questions? We have to get them the microphone. Could somebody grab the microphone?
I just had one question for Dr. Zagzag.
Yes.
How do we get in touch with you? Do you have a number I can call you?
212-263-2262.
212-263-2262.
2262.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
She was first. Thank you.
This is one question that I'm kind of following that I'm a little off on, which I really didn't hear much, was about the functioning MRI. I hear with being surgeons that you're doing a lot with the functioning MRI, and then I guess that you're using it to scope where you go in and everything. Do they use functioning MRIs to follow the brain tumors? I guess I know that because I go with my regular MRIs because I have, for following it, but I understand the functioning MRI, you don't get contrast and so forth. But could a functioning MRI be done so that you see if you're having any deficits or anything being done, or where could like a functioning MRI could even be coming in?
That's a good question. Why do we do functional MRI preoperatively and not postoperatively? Because I think postoperatively we're actually looking at function. We're actually looking, so we listen to the patient, your symptoms, whereas preoperatively we use it for the mapping.
Correct.
And so it becomes part of what we described, Dr. Bloomfield and I described about the tractography and also about planning the approach. So afterwards, if a person is speaking fluently, then we don't need to know where the centers of speech are. And furthermore, the insurance companies wouldn't pay for it. It's an extra cost.
So it wouldn't be.
It would be very interesting. It would be fantastically interesting to see how where the functional areas move and
keep
how the
monitoring
brain
the
is
patient.
reorganized, but it would have to be a research study because if you're functioning, then you don't need a functional MRI.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question for all the doctors. Do you think which is the biggest challenge for the brain tumor drug development?
I think it's one word, is heterogeneity. My colleague, Dr. Snoodle, a younger faculty at NYU, published a paper where he demonstrated very, very clearly that within the same tumor, different parts of the tumor are driven by different molecular abnormalities. So not only are the tumor different from one patient to another, the same tumor have different pathways. So I guess this is why multimodality approach is going to be probably the way to go. And one drug is unlikely to be the answer, probably because, as Dr. Brem very eloquently demonstrated earlier today, there is such a drift that this tumor cell, can exhibit, that they can really change their behavior, that you're really going to have to, attack these tumors from different fronts. That's, in my opinion, the biggest challenge. I think we got to a point where neurosurgeons are superb in their technique, at UPenn, and we have beautiful presentation from Dr. Bloomfield at NYU. I think they really are, wonderful surgeons, extremely talented neurosurgeon. For a variety of reasons, when you're dealing with an invasive glioblastoma, surgery is not going to be the definite answer. And removal of the tumor is going to be essential, but you're going to need additional therapy to deal with it. That's my opinion about the challenges.
Can I just add a little bit to that? So there's an annual course on accelerating drug discovery for cancer. It's given by AACR, NCI, ASCO, and Duke, and it's in Bethesda. And just an executive summary, quick. There are 10,000 new molecular entities every year. There's like new patents that are very promising. Of those, the money required to get them to laboratory studies, there's about 250 that go through animal testing. And of those, maybe 50 make it to a phase 1 trial because it's something called Death Valley. In other words, any toxicology, if you have a great drug and it works and it blocks inhibition and angiogenesis and it has liver toxicity, that's probably not going to go into clinical trial. So there's a problem with models, there's a problem with funding, and that's why when a company like Novartis or Genentech tells you it costs $1 billion to get a drug, well, we looked at penicillin. It didn't cost $1 billion to do the animal studies. But they look at all the compounds, all the failures. There's such a pyramid. And then to go to phase 1 trials and phase 2 and phase 3, we're talking about 10 million, 100 million, hundreds of millions to get to the phase 3. The Solingetide, it costs tens of millions of dollars. So it's actually a costly, like a Darwinian, so that's, if we could accelerate that process, perhaps computational models or predictive models, which is the better combination, that would be a breakthrough in this field.
My question's for Al. You mentioned a reimbursement, a copay reimbursement
Yes.
for insurances. Does it matter who your insurance provider is?
No, it could be Medicare, Medicaid, any private one.
What are the basic qualifications?
It's in the brochure. There's 4 qualifications. You have to have a malignant primary tumor. It can't be metastatic. The income level for a family of 4 is $117,000.
I don't make that much.
You have to be a U.S. resident, and you have to have some kind of insurance.
Okay.
It's pretty easy. And we could also go back 3 months. If you paid anything in the last 3 months, we could go back and help. Any other questions?
I do. Follow up to the clinical trial response. So can you clarify with the clinical trials? Like, let's say there's a drug that's being investigated, and and let's say only 5% has a response, but they have a complete response. Because of their unique biology, they respond really well. Phase 1 trial, would that be considered a failure, and does it go to phase 2?
So the question is, if 1 or 2 of the first 20 patients on a phase 1 trial have a complete response, is that considered failure? Phase 1 is meant to define dosing levels to go to a phase 2 and toxicity. If a drug is very toxic in phase 1 trial, it won't go to phase 2. So in your case, if one or 2 people had a great response, but it was generally toxic, would not go. What's that? If it's not toxic, yeah, phase 1 by definition is a toxicity. It will go to phase 2, assuming there's funding for phase 2. One of the speakers today said that they look in phase 1 is basically to define the dose and this scheduling for phase 2 studies, but they also look in phase 1 if there's some effect. So as a secondary endpoint is efficacy. It becomes a problem that insurance healthcare providers won't pay for phase 1 trials because they say we're not interested in, our job is not drug development. Our job, we're definitely not interested in promoting things that are toxic. So why should we be paying? So therefore now they're called phase 1/phase 2 because they move very quickly to efficacy. So I think your question really is 2 questions. One about the semantic question of phase 1 versus phase 2, but also the biological question is how do we pick enriched subpopulations so we don't make type 1, type 2 errors that have false negative, false positive, false negative that we say the drug doesn't work when in fact it does work for population. That's what Herceptin with women with breast cancer. At first that was considered a useless drug until they did an analysis and they could look, then they found that there's a certain subpopulation where Herceptin is very effective. This is why now we're not just looking at survival, but to get trials going forward, we need targets and markers to see if the drug is on target and to select which, because we realize that patients' response, we're not created equal in terms of drug response.
Will Obamacare help with the clinical trial situation? There's a part saying that they're going to pay for parts of it.
Yeah, apparently it mandates, clinical trials, so that's fantastic.
Any other questions? Diane, can we have you come up? Thank you, doctors, for your help. I'm very happy that you made it.
Thank you to those of you that are staying. My name is Diane Beer, and I'm going to be spending the next few minutes talking to you about raising awareness. But before I actually do that, I do want to take a couple of minutes and recognize certain people. I know that there are a number of people that are here who have lost loved ones to brain tumors. And those of you that fall into that category, would you please stand up? Just take a minute and stand up. Okay, I would like to take the next couple of minutes and just thank you for your dedication and the work that you have done in this community, because there are those that are following you, and we do appreciate everything that you have done. The next set of people that I would like to just say thank you for being here is, how many survivors do we have in this room that are over 40 years? Anyone 40 years? No, surviving any type of a brain tumor 40 years or more. 35? Woohoo! 30? Anybody 30? 25? No, stay standing. 25? Good. 25 and 35. We're getting there. 20? Stay standing. Any brain tumor survivors 20 years? 15 years. I know we got a few of those. 15 years. 10 or more? 10 or more. 5? 5 or more? Those of you? Anyone else, any other survivor that's not standing? For those of you that are more on the newly diagnosed side, a year or two out, I want you to look around this room. And I don't care, no offense to any of you doctors, I don't care what type of a prognosis you have been given. You look around this room and you take hope and faith that you can be here 35 years out. Thank you. We're going to spend the next couple of minutes talking about different ways of raising awareness. The last few years, I have been involved in multiple ways of raising awareness. Some of these things that you see on the agenda are things that I have worked on. Some of them have just come through from other people. And I do want to talk about all of them. So we will be talking about brain tumor walks. We'll be talking about the New Jersey Brain Tumor Marathon Team, Flo's Chili Cook-Off, Dancing for a Cure, the Under Our Hats program, and any other ideas that anyone has. So I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes talking about the National Walk to End Brain Tumors. We started this in 2010. 2014 will actually be our 5th year. So this coming May, in 9 or 10 months, whatever that is, will be 5 years that we've been doing these walks. And our goal is to have a walk in every state. I have not achieved that goal yet, but I am not giving up. So we will have one walk in each state eventually. This past year, I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes talking specifically about the New Jersey walks. In 2010, we started out with 1. 2011, we had 2. In 2013, we had 3. So we've had a walk in Edison, New Jersey, New Egypt, and in Cape May. And maybe in 2014, we'll have a 4th walk, which would be really nice. The one thing that I do want to talk about with the walks is that in the last 4 years, we've raised well over $250,000. That money has all gone to research projects, various research projects that the different coordinators have voted on. And one of the things that I think is really important is that some of that money every single year has been given specifically to a pediatric research project. So that goes to tell you that even though PEDS may not be on the top list of everyone's agenda, it is on the top list of the coordinators that do these walks. So eventually, we will have a walk in each state. So I would like to call up Al and Stan. So Al and Stan, come on up here because I can't leave the podium. So come around here. I wouldn't be able to have the walks or the marathon team if it weren't for these two gentlemen. Al is the one that gets the sponsors and goes out and pays for everything for the walks, does the website, and then turns around and lets me use the website for our marathon team. And I wouldn't be able to do the marathon team at all if it weren't for Stan's help. So I have New Jersey Marathon medals from 2013 for both of them. So the New Jersey Marathon team, we started in 2011, and we have had team members that have run this, one of the events for the last 3 years. 2014 will be our 4th year. The last 2 years, we have had a survivor in all 3 events. So for those of you that are not aware, the New Jersey Marathon has 3 events: a full marathon, which is 26.2 miles, half marathon, which is 13.1, and a half marathon relay, where 2 people will each run 6.5 miles for a combination of the 13 miles. So for those of you that are not aware, you can actually walk a half marathon. So you can participate in either the half marathon or the relay event, because 6.5 miles is definitely walkable. And we have had my husband's making faces at me, yeah, right. And we have had a survivor the last 2 years in every single event. So I've had a brain tumor survivor in the half marathon relay, the full half marathon, and the full marathon. So if you take a look at what is up here now, do you see the gentleman that has Survivor Central New Jersey Brain Tumor Support Group fighting brain tumors 1 mile at a time? He's our full marathon runner. Brain tumor survivor, and has done this. He's actually been on our team since 2011, which was when we started this. First year he did a half, and the last 2 years he's done a full. Okay? There are a couple of other people that are in the room that I do want to recognize. David Beer has done the half marathon since 2011, and Mary Ellen Sullivan, who is our other survivor, which is in the back of the room, has done the relay with her daughter the last 2 years. For the 3 years that we have done this event, we have raised over $25,000. Not counting expenses, it's just what we have raised. So with that money, we have had 2 conferences, and we have a scholarship program, the Matthew Schroeder Scholarship Program. And hopefully this will continue to be an annual event. There are some students here that I would like to recognize. The first person that I would like to call up is Ryan Quinn. Ryan is getting a Student Volunteer of the Year award. The reason that he is getting this award is because he has designed the walk t-shirts that we had in 2013. He designed the t-shirts for the Dance for a Cure. He has helped with the New Jersey Marathon walks that we've had for the last 4 years. Stan, Ryan. So thank you. The next person that I'd like to call up is Emily Sullivan. Emily is getting a volunteer award also for her work to the brain tumor community. She has run the half marathon relay the last 2 years with her mom. She is also doing a gold award in Girl Scouts, which is the highest award that you can do. And the charity that she has chosen is the Central New Jersey Brain Tumor Support Group. And the last person that I would like to call up is Sarah Beer. The reason that Sarah is getting this award is that she has done the New Jersey Marathon relay for the last 3 years. She started this when she was 9 years old. She was the youngest participant at that point, and has been actually the last 3 years. She has also done Dance for a Cure and the walks. Sarah? Sure. Nice job. Thanks. You're welcome. Which one?
The one here on the side. Yeah, that's her running, and both feet are off the ground as she's coming to the finish line. It was great.
If you just take a quick look at this, the left center, all the way on the left, you'll actually see that was when Sarah ran the first year. Stan took this picture. Her feet were off the ground. At that point, we had just come around the corner and the finish line was there, and she was dragging a little bit, and I said, see that big green thing? That's the finish line. She was gone. That was it. You'll see that the team is in the lower right. We have 26 or 27 team members this year. The first year out, we had 10. So we have grown every single year. If you look to the right, but in the center, you'll see Patty Anthony and Debbie Prasad. Both have been on the team since the first year. That was actually the first year that they ran. Patty has run with us for the last 3 years. You'll see Pam Cohen up there. She ran for her brother. You'll see the McKelvey family. Jim is there. His wife Carlene has run with us. You'll see Mary Ellen and Emily. You'll see Charlie. He ran with us last year too. And then this past year he did land support. You'll see Heather. You'll see the Schenkels. So one other person that I do want to point out, because I think it's kind of unusual, is Jen Scarra. She ran with us in 2012. 2013, she did not say a word, came up and said, yes, I'm doing the relay again. And when we actually had the day of the event, she came and she was 6 months pregnant. We were all surprised, to say the least. But she ran, baby ran with her, and everybody crossed the finish line. So the other thing that I want to leave you with when it comes to marathons, everybody thinks that they are tough and that they're really hard and it's something that you have to be athletic to do. You don't have to. I would say the most important thing that you need to have is the determination to cross the finish line. If you have that determination, you can walk it. And despite what some people think, it really is a party on the race course. Because everybody's there, they'll cheer you on. It's definitely a lot of fun. So the next thing that I want to talk about, this is not an event that I have participated in, but it is one that does benefit the JFK Brain Tumor Center, is Flo's Chili Cook-Off. They've held this event for the last 4 years, and over the last 4 years, they have raised well over $20,000. And the money that they raise from this goes to help the patients at the JFK Brain Tumor Center for things like MRIs, getting to and from treatment, and so on. Last February, Star Essence is the dance company that my daughter dances for, and they were participating in the Power of Dance competition. And that dance competition was each dance company had to select a charity in order to dance for, and the money that was raised from that dance competition would go to the charity. So they chose to dance for our support group. And they raised approximately a little over $2,000. They had an Applebee's fundraiser and things like that. And at the dance competition itself, they took first place overall. So all of the other dance schools that were there, they came in first place. What the dancers did in order to raise additional funds was to give up their trophies, and the money that would have been used to purchase the trophies actually went to the charity. There is another fundraiser that we do. It's called Under Our Hats, and it's targeted primarily for schools and organizations, and people pay $1 or $5, whatever it is that they want to do, and they wear a hat for the day. And we do this in May, and the funds that are raised from that go specifically to pediatric brain tumor research. So some of the other ideas that we have are you can do golf outings, you can do car washes, wear a gray ribbon, you can create a booth during Brain Tumor Awareness Month and let people know that there are survivors out there. Some of the newest things are the gray ribbons that the children make with the gray elastic bands. You can also join the Gray Ribbon Crusade, which is a group of collective brain tumor organizations who come together. And the most important thing I would say is to keep getting louder. Never ever doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. It is probably one of my most favorite sayings, particularly in the brain tumor world, because we are considered, and I'll use this term very lightly, a rare cancer. I don't feel that we are. I feel that there are too many people that have brain cancer, and ever since my husband was diagnosed, every time I turn around, I hear of 10 more. So to me, you can't tell me that it's rare. And that's just how I feel. So with all of us collectively coming together, we can do something to raise awareness. Thank you.